Welcome back to the show. You are watching or listening to Goal Line Extended on the Lacrosse Flash Podcast Network. I hope that you're all having a great day wherever you might be as we get you set for next week's PLL College Draft. And joining me next here on GLE is the 2020 expansion head coach and the man who holds the number 2 overall pick in that college draft. A much lighter offseason without having to draft a whole new team from scratch, but still a busy offseason nonetheless with the huge pool of players entering through the entry draft and the waiver wire pool. The Waterdogs were able to add a few of those talented players as well as completing arguably the biggest trade of this offseason. We'll be talking much more about that as we get this going. But joining me now, Waterdogs head coach Andy Copelan. Coach Copelan, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
Ryan, thanks for having me, man. Good to see you again.
Hey, great to see you as well. A big offseason for you and your team as you get set to lead your team into 2021. It all starts on June 6th for you against the expansion Cannons in Gillette Stadium, and we're looking ahead to that one as it will be the first game in PLL history between two expansion teams. The Cannons obviously expanding from the MLL this season, the 2020 MLL Bubble Champions. But before we look ahead to this season, let's look back at last season, the 2020 Championship Series in Utah. Not exactly the results you and your team were hoping for. You dropped your first 3 games before that first win in franchise history over the Chaos in overtime in the last game of the round-robin play. But you look at those 3 losses, the combined goal differential was 4. A 1-goal loss to the Atlas in a game where Jack Concannon was absolutely phenomenal, 14 saves to keep his team in the game, and the Atlas went on to score 4 unanswered fourth-quarter goals to get that win. 2 days later, the Archers managed a 6-goal second half to go along with 10 saves and 1 lone goal allowed by Adam Gittleman in the second half. So the glaring, aspect of these 2 games, a strong first half and then not a strong second half finish. But then in the loss to Chrome, the exact opposite. Chrome led 11-3 going into the fourth quarter. Your team held scoreless in the second and third, but then 9 goals ripped off in the fourth, a goal too shy as Chrome escaped with a 13-12 victory. And then, like I said, the overtime win over the Chaos for the first win in franchise history. But you look back on these first few games for your team after what was a short preparation time for obviously a bubble season that we weren't really expecting, obviously, going into it. What's your assessment on the tournament, and what are you taking from that experience to get you ready for this season?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. It was fun just to be out there with the guys, and obviously we had the challenge of building from inception, and we had an unbelievable locker room. I'll state that first and foremost. I would put that group of guys up against any that I've ever been around. So that part made kind of a difficult win-loss record far more enjoyable than some may think. And honestly, there's a process to this whole thing. I mean, everybody always wants stuff to happen overnight, and certainly nobody wanted that more than me. But, kind of like if I put my realistic lens on, you understand that we just had to build, kind of a culture and a foundation that we can build upon. And I feel like we have that in place right now. So I felt like last year we were close, and I feel like this year we are really built to make a run at this thing. So that certainly is the expectation.
The Waterdogs finishing the group play with 1 win, 3 losses, and then their tournament ending with a loss to the Redwoods in the first round of the elimination tournament, ending your 2020 campaign. But what it also did here was get the ball rolling on the preparation plan for 2021, and that plan involved acquiring attackman Ryan Brown from the Atlas by way of a trade, setting the Atlas a second-round college draft selection for this upcoming draft. It will be the 11th overall pick for one of the top attackmen in the league, one of the best shooters in the game, having the ability to really stretch the field and shoot from both sides with both hands at a very high clip. How do you plan on integrating Brown into this offense, and how early along in this process did you know that he was a guy that you'd be targeting this offseason to add via trade, a guy that was really successful in the PLO's first season, playing alongside a guy that you grabbed in expansion last season and that played a big role on this team in Utah, attackman Kieran McCardle?
Sure. Well, that certainly was part of the logic, was you just watch the chemistry that those guys had in kind of year 1 of the PLL. And then I've been a Brownie fan forever, from back to his Hopkins days, and then watching him with Team USA in 2018, and then certainly his professional career. And some may call him the best shooter in the world. I won't make that statement, but I certainly think that he's very elite there. And I just think he gives you, kind of a stretch guy who has both interior and exterior presence, and really, really, really high lacrosse IQ. And I just think he will cause opposing defenses to game plan for him. Certainly, I think when the Waterdogs played the Atlas last year, I think Brownie had their first 2 goals of the game before we kind of were able to really adjust and account for him. But he puts a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. So now the now the challenge is making sure that we can complement him with the right assortment of guys. And that was what led us in some ways to, picking up Mikey Schlosser there in the second round of the entry draft, because we wanted a guy who could just, kind of automatically draw a slide. And I think Mikey gives us that. And then again, that'll kind of pave the way for how we approach some of this college draft stuff here as well. But no, I think Ryan Brown is a plug and play guy. I think he's going to be a huge part of the future of the Waterdogs, and we're fired up to have him.
The Waterdogs hoping that Ryan Brown can add another dimension here to this offensive attack. He joins McCardle, Ben Reeves, Westberg, Christian Crucinello, and your first-round selection last season, Michael Kraus, who returns after opting to play in the MLL last season. Now, you added Brown ahead of the expansion draft with the expectation that you were probably going to lose at least one of those attackmen that you left unprotected. But at the end of the day, the only one you actually lost was Ryan Drenner, a guy that you picked up ahead of last season. But you lose Drenner, face-off man Juice Stimno, who played a big role in the 1-2 punch that you guys were able to bring at the face-off X. And then veteran defenseman Brody Merrill, who was very important to that defensive unit a year ago. You told Lacrosse Flash editor-in-chief Austin Owens right before this year's expansion draft that leaving Merrill unprotected was more of a calculated risk, taking his age, the unknown Canadian quarantine measures into account with the hope to hopefully, get him back. But you lose those three guys. And from what we've heard from Coach Quirk, it looks like he would have been grabbing some more Waterdogs if he had that opportunity. You've already made a few moves here this offseason along with adding Brown. But what's the plan in replacing the losses of Simoneau and Merrill?
Sure. I mean, we lost three great players and great people, no doubt about it. I knew going into it that the Cannons were only able to select three. So there was maybe a little bit of, kind of poker being played there, and was very fortunate that we had Reeves and Kraus bounce back to us. I went in thinking that I was probably going to lose one of those two lefties, and to get them both back, we'll certainly take it. Again, Drenner is a great lacrosse player, but, kind of I had known that we'd kind of had the Brownie trade, kind of doctored up there, so felt okay about that. And then Brody certainly is, as he's had a close to 20-year professional career. I mean, he's the greatest of all time, and I don't use that lightly whatsoever. Just again, that was a crossing the border situation, and knowing Brody has, kids and a family back at home, like what was the likelihood and his availability going to be this summer? And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that we still have clear answers to some of those questions. So we went into the entry draft understanding that there were certainly huge shoes to fill in Brody's absence, but we feel really good about the two defensemen we were able to get there, and Liam Burns and Ben Randall. So everybody talks about kind of the departure of Brody, but from my end also, we lost Noah Richard too, who were able to keep on our team through the military exemption. But Noah Richard was a huge part of our defense last year. So we had to replace both Brody and Noah. And that's hence why we grabbed Liam and Ben both. And, again, is it a 1-for-1 trade? I don't really know, but we feel like we lost a couple good defensemen and we gained a couple defensemen, and we got to, we'll have to rebuild and develop some chemistry there, but I think we'll be able to do so.
Liam Burns and Ben Randall drafted by Coach Copelan in the entry draft to help bulk up on the defensive end. And then short stick defensive midi Matt Witcher brought in as well through the waivers to add some depth with Kyle McClancy and Steven DiNapoli. And then along with Brown, the other big addition that you made this offseason, you brought it up before, bringing in midfielder Mikey Schlosser, jack of all trades, as Jordan Johnson called him after the entry draft. You reunite him with your first overall selection in last year's entry draft, Zach Currier. We here at Flash, we're particularly excited to see what Schlosser is able to do on the shortened field. But what do you expect Schlosser to bring to this team, especially when it comes to the offensive end and in transition?
First of all, he's an unbelievable guy. I actually just hung up with Coach Kevin Conry at Michigan not too long ago, who had the privilege of coaching, Mikey during some of his collegiate days, and just an unbelievable reputation in terms of, what he brings and some of the intangibles that he'll add to the locker room. So that was a huge part of it. And then two, just felt like he was one of the more dynamic midfielders available in terms of, obviously his speed and his two-handedness, but he plays with no ego. Like, he goes by people and then he throws the ball to the right person. He's not a super high risk, high reward kind of guy. I just think he has a real efficiency to him. And, I'd kind of equate it to that whole like second assist, kind of hockey analogy, where he just can kickstart things and kind of be your party starter on offense there, and then let guys play on the backside. But he gets in the hole. He can play defense. He obviously great in between the arcs, but I just think Mikey has played with certainly Courier, and then again Drew Snyder was a part of that franchise there for a number of years. So hopefully there will be some ingrained chemistries already in place, and we can just build off of those.
Schlosser, a big add to join this Waterdogs team and midfield in 2021, joining the likes of, as you said, Drew Snyder, and then fellow Canadians Zach Courier, Ben McIntosh, Wes Berg, Jake Withers, and all-world LSM Ryland Reese. Coach, I just talked to Ryland like a week ago for this show. He says his plan is to stay in the States if the quarantine measures in Canada are still in effect come the summer. We brought that up just a little while ago. But in terms of the other Canadians on your roster, what should we be expecting as we get closer and closer to the weekend of June 4?
I think they all have similar plans where if the quarantine measures are not lifted, I think they're all planning on hunkering in here for the duration of the summer and throughout the fall, and as long as they need to. But they're certainly making the PLL and the Waterdogs a priority. So I will, I appreciate that a whole lot for those guys.
We should be hearing much more over the next 2 weeks or so, or 2 months, I should say, as to what Canadian guys will be doing or what they will be doing with the season approaching. Obviously, very important for you as you prepare for this season with a handful of Canadians on your roster. Let's move on to this college draft. You have the second most prized selection at this for this upcoming draft. You'll be picking after Atlas head coach Ben Rubier at the top of the draft. And my God, the talent that will be available specifically to the two of you with the first and second overall pick. If you want to go attack, there are a ton of them. There's also a few notable polls that we will be watching as the first few picks unfold. And then you only have one faceoff specialist as of right now. Arguably one of the best to ever do it should be available to you at number 2 overall. A few talented midfielders that can play in the middle of the field as well. And then you also consider the fact that, yes, you did recently move that second round pick. So after this selection at 2, you won't pick again until 18. So I won't put it past you to move back in the first round, obviously being a possibility, get some more draft capital. Some scenarios obviously being thrown around primarily by myself, but we will wait and see how the draft unfolds. 1 week until this draft. Coach, what's the plan heading into it?
Well, everything that you said is very accurate. There are a lot of kind of side conversations that have been going on for quite some time. So whether or not we stay firm or we pull the trigger and move around a little bit is still TBD. But it would have to be a pretty hefty asking price for us to trade down. I think you have some pretty special attackmen in particular. I know Paul Kark kind of just did something on social media the other day, but between Sowers and Teat and Bernhardt, you got 3, kind of A+ candidates there. So part of this all the way along was to, try to target, one of those guys. Again, that goes back to the acquisition there of Ryan Brown and making sure we're able to complement him with the right pieces. So that at least, kind of today is kind of the thought process. But again, we got a little bit of time here and some more conversations to take place.
Definitely can't go wrong with any of those 3 names. Obviously, some polls available, some face-off guys available that we are watching as well, but cannot go wrong with either of those 3 names. But we did get something important there. It is not for certain that Coach Copeland's staying here at 2. He might be moving down. We will see over the next couple days, really, as we are now just under a week from the college draft. The 2021 season right around the corner, just over a month away, but we do have this college draft first next Monday night, April 26th on Peacock. For everyone watching or listening, make sure to tune in as Coach Copeland holds the second overall pick, and will be adding another talented player to his roster heading into training camp and the 2021 season. Coach, I want to thank you so much for coming on and joining me today. Before I let you go, Matt DeLuca and Charlie Cipriano, currently the 2 names you have on the roster to play goalie. We saw DeLuca relieve Cipriano towards the end of last year's tournament. What's the outlook right now on your team's goalie situation?
Well, we continue to have two that we like. I mean, I know there's kind of a narrative out there that, I think we finished, last in save percentage at like 53 or 54. So people were just like, assuming that we were going to try to go ahead and enhance that position. And, again, there are still some kind of side conversations that are taking place. And in my utopian world, we'd kind of add a 3rd goalie to the roster to try to get, some real goalie competition up at camp. But I really do like the 2 that we have right now. I mean, I think Matt DeLuca in 2 games and change, I think, was right around 59%. And Charlie Cipriano in the first couple, I thought played very well, and then was dealt an unfortunate rib injury that he tried to play through. But, I know, and he knows, he said certainly wasn't him at his best. So I continue to feel really good about the 2 that we have. But, look, any coach and kind of GM's responsibility is to try to get the best guys that we possibly can. So we, if there's an opportunity for us to enhance any area on our roster, we're going to take advantage and try to do so.
Cipriano, a guy that you coached at the college level at Fairfield, now getting a chance to coach him at the pro level. And then DeLuca, your second round selection in last year's college draft. Coach Copelan, thank you so much for joining me here on GLE. The head coach of the Waterdogs Lacrosse Club. We're very excited to see what you do with that number 2 overall selection in this college draft, as well as what you do at 18 and 27 with 1 week with 1 week to go to the 2021 PLO college draft, and then week 1 right around the corner. Coach Copelan, thank you again. Hope to talk to you very soon.
Very good. Thanks for your time, Ryan. Always good to be with you.